So this is the 0015 Hrs GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Part A, 0015 Hrs GMT on Saturday, 21st of January 2023. Tomorrow we shall be marking the actual anniversary of the Khoodeelaar rally held on the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd of January 2006 at the Brady Centre in Hanbury Street off Brick Lane. The biggest ever independent rally organized to defend the community in the East End of London and to defend the community from the East End of London. That rally was, of course, one of the many street events that we had to organize to defend the community against the Crossrail Hole plot, which was actually a front for the wider agenda against the community. The community that had been the target of the attacks by the mainstream British media since Sunday, the 2nd of December 1973. And on the Sunday, the 2nd of December 1973, I mobilized the opposition to that attack and the defense of the community right there on that date and that day. So that is 50 calendar years. 50 calendar years since I mobilized the defense of the community and defended the community and refuted the lies against the Bangladeshis, the lies against the Silotis, lies about the Siloti speaking people in the United Kingdom, allegedly not being even aware of the campaign in support of the creation of a state in Bangladesh in 1971. All of those things have been going on. Those defense activities organized by me has been going on for the last 50 years, since December 1973. In between December 1973 and now, 21st of January 2023, I have organized hundreds of events and created, written, authored, researched, created thousands, the equivalent of thousands of pamphlets, booklets, and hundreds of essays in creating the idea from the actual scratch of a community internationally that is proud, dignified as a whole, and is clear about its origins and foundations. That is the Siloti-speaking Bangladeshi community based on any part of the planet outside of Bangladesh, outside of India, because Siloti speakers exist in Assam, in the Assam state of India. That is where the second largest Siloti-speaking demography exists, outside of Siloti itself. So in 50 years, there have been more original, there have been more original work done by me under my initiative about any community that can be compared with the Siloti speakers, with any background, in terms of the numbers of pieces that I've had to write, in terms of the number of actual research that I have to undertake, including today. And I'll come to discussing Friday's front page of the Times newspaper, which has got an extremely rare piece about language. And the question about the language, and the Siloti language and the Bengali language. All the pieces that Leslie Garner, the corrupt, racist idiot, Leslie Garner has fed all these lies about the Silotis, against the Silotis. And she, being a completely shameless, disgusting, depraved liar, made a combination of a very nasty piece of attack on the collective Silotis in the Brick Lane, in and around the Brick Lane, London E1 area, when there was no precedent. That is to say, there was no similar example before that date and that piece of any such attack against the Silotis anywhere by anyone. Now, nobody who supported Leslie Garner, and there still live a few Siloti speaking mental slave morons, complete and utter Ghulam Mirzafor cunts, who still believe secretly, they don't dare say it publicly, that the Silotis deserved to be attacked by the front which Leslie Garner represented on behalf of the anti-Silotis, essentially the jealous Bengalis. I'll come to that jealousy of Bengalis, and especially I shall examine the character of a very nasty Bengali called Abu Buya. This cunt, Abu Buya, was employed as an employee of the Council of Citizens of Tower Hamlets. This Bengali cunt, Abu Buya, was employed under the morally dead Joe Hunt. Joe Hunt was in post, being paid for being morally dead at the Council of Citizens of Tower Hamlets, which was based at the building called the Montefiore Center, but in the part of the building that used to be called the Schoolkeeper's House. Now, the Schoolkeeper's House is a reference to the Montefiore Center previously being a primary school. Okay. So the Abu Buya was an employee when I first entered the old school keeper's building or premises in order to explore and examine what the Council of Citizens of Tower Hamlets was doing, if it was doing anything to oppose racism. That was in the calendar year 1973. And Abu Buya, who either came from Kumilla in Bangladesh or Noakhali or some Bengali part, not a Siloti, Abu Buya and I became completely embroiled in a very serious series of disagreements, issues about Bangladesh, about the Silotis, about the people of Siloti origin in the Brick Lane area. All of that took place before the Sunday Times piece appeared at the end of the year 1973, which was 2nd of December 1973. And Abu Buya, who is passed now, continued to be hostile to the evidence and was a completely shameless liar. Because 2 years later, when in Bangladesh Sheikh Mujib was murdered, and Sheikh Mujib was murdered, whatever the reasons, and we completely condemn the murder and anyone who support or supported the murder. There may be reasons people may give as to why Sheikh Mujib was unpopular and all the rest of it. But to murder him was completely beyond the pale and absolutely unacceptable. Lo and behold, this Abu Buya the cunt, who was in London, not in fucking Bangladesh, claiming that he was involved in the murder of Sheikh Mujib and he was a political strategist. This shit. The shit claimed that in a Pakistani-owned newspaper, which had Urdu and English language in the printed kind of copies that were based, the office was based in some place in Hoxton. And he made claims, and it should be there unless they have kind of demolished the kind of archives. It is there. Abu Buya made the claim that he was one of the leading planners behind the murder of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and he was congratulating himself and his so-called other co-plotters. How the fuck was he doing any of that? He was in London. He was in London employed at the Council of Citizens of Toronto. What fucking access to what did the cunt have? So I challenged him immediately after finding that in the junk in Hoxton, because I was, and as I still do, I was examining all the relevant news print papers. As soon as I saw it, I confronted him, and the cunt wobbled. He didn't say anything like what he said he had planned and whatever. And he would not answer my question. I said, why? Why did you say that? And I also continue to confront this cunt in Barslem Street off Cannon Street Road, off Commercial Road in Tower Hamlets. Barslem Street is the place where there was a sari shop, a clothes shop, that was being run by a man called Abdus Sabur. Now, Abdus Sabur came from Silot, but claimed to be politically ahead of the rest of the Silotis. And Abu Buya was one of his brainwashers. And Abu Buya would visit Abdus Sabur's sari shop in Barslem Street quite frequently. I don't know whether he visited that shop every day, but because I didn't visit it every day, so I can't factually verify how often he visited, but he did visit. It is clear that Abu Buya stole money from some kind of sources. And it is also clear that Abu Buya gave money to Abdus Sabur towards the stock replenishment, etc. of the shop. And it was Abdus Sabur's mental slavery and stupidity that allowed Abu Buya to even make any claims against Sheikh Mujib in his shop. Every time I said that Abu Buya had no right to condemn Sheikh Mujib in the way that he was doing. He has no evidence and he had no right to condemn Sheikh Mujib in the way. And he, of course, had no right to claim that he was one of the plotters against the murder of Sheikh Mujib. And Abdul Sabur didn't oppose Abu Buya. And he didn't ask him any questions. And to know that this Abdul Sabur, quite separate from this topic, used to claim that he was a supporter of Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. How could he be claiming to be a supporter of Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani and be supporting an idiot like this Abu Buya? Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani treated Sheikh Mujib as a very close political follower. And Sheikh Mujib, at least on the public front, had nothing but respect for the Maulana. And the Maulana would never, ever support any idea of doing even a physical harm to Sheikh Mujib, let alone murder him. So how did somebody like Abdul Sabur, who claimed to be a follower of Maulana Bashani, allow a criminal like Abu Buya to boast about being part of the group that murdered Sheikh Mujib? So this is just factual, absolute factual, original, world exclusive recollection. And this is being made in the context of the 50 years since the attack on the Siloti speaking Bangladeshi community by the Sunday Times Color magazine in a piece byline to this racist cunt, Leslie Garner, on the 2nd of December 1973. Now, I and Abu Buya also disagreed about Abu Buya making claims months before Sheikh Mujib was murdered, years before, because I met him first in 1973. That is my recollection, the best recollection I have. Saying that the Bengalis were leading the Silotis in Brick Lane. They were not. What the Bengalis were doing what they are doing now. They are acting as parasites, feeding off the Silotis. They were acting as parasites in Bangladesh and in Silot as well, and in the UK. And Abu Buya was one of the main parasites feeding off the Silotis. I could not establish whether Abu Buya had anything to do with the Sunday Times piece, but I doubt he had anything to do with it, because the narrative contained in the Sunday Times attack on the Silotis differed in many respects, in many particulars, from the narrative that Abu Buya actually mouthed. Not that he would be fundamentally showing any recognition or respect for the Silotis. Abu Buya used Abdul Sabur as a pet, as a stooge. Now today, 50 years later, there are so many stooges, Siloti-speaking stooges, in Tower Hamlets, in the UK, and in Bangladesh itself and internationally. Those stooges are only stooges because they have no original education. They have no education about the history of Silot, the role of the Siloti people and the role of the ancestors, the leaders. That is why they're stooges, because they had to fill their ignorance and their stupidity by being stooges for the Bengalis, anti-Siloti Bengalis. which is why I set up an organization, the platform called the Silet Bangladesh Friendship Society, in order to stop the divisive antagonism among the Bangladeshis between the Bengalis and the Silotis. And that has not been, if you like, surpassed by anyone, that has not been even factually matched by anyone. Now, the address we used was 92 Brick Lane, sorry, 92 New Road. Now, 92 New Roads has long disappeared because it is part of the demolition of the front of the Royal London Hospital, which is now becoming turned into the Tower Hamlets Council HQ after they will evacuate or they will leave the Mulberry Place in London E14 2BG. This evening, that is Friday evening, during my short walk through Whitechapel, I saw the light. The lights have gone up on the building. Most of the frontage of the building that used to be called the Royal London Hospital in the Whitechapel roadside. So I would say that they're either doing the work or they're preparing the building to be converted into full scale, full time headquarters of the Tower Hamlets Council. Now, in the evening of Friday, I was checking on the news about the community, and I came across an item belatedly because I didn't see it when it was published. That was published dated the 12th of January. And I'll come to that shortly. It's a piece that is byline to a white young woman called Gregory. And she is described as a local democracy reporter. Now let's see if I can find the headline and the piece. It's a piece that is carried on the My London website. And the heading is Tower Hamlets Mayor reveals 16.6 million plan to crack down on crime-ridden borough. It includes hiring extra police officers and investing in new CCTV equipment. And it's by Ruby Gregory. She has got a middle name L. Don't know what L stands for, but that is the Twitter handle she runs is Ruby L. Gregory. And it's timed at 16:31 on the 16th of January, not on 12th of January. 16th of January 2023 and updated at 06 or 05 or 06 or 7 hours the next day, 17th of January. Now, we have to read the relevant piece And the headline is completely misleading because she says that this is the full breakdown of how the 16.6 million pound would be spent. 11.9 million on youth services, drug treatment services, and redesigned and rejuvenated community grants program. Now, a lot of that money is corruption money, and we shall come to updating on the corruption by Tower Hamlets Council another time, maybe. Now, number two is 2.9 million pounds will be spent on 40 extra Tower Hamlets enforcement officer. THEO small s. And the third item is 1.6 million is to be spent on hiring 33 new police officers over the next 3 years. And the last item, the fourth one, 200,000 pounds on new CCTV equipment. Okay, and then it says, this comes after the mayor admitted it was unacceptable that the borough had become the third highest crime-ridden borough in London. Notice what this is saying. I'm not saying it. This is what he's saying in that piece. Mr. Rahman told cabinet members on January 4, we are third in London when it comes to crime. The third highest crime-ridden borough in London. That's unacceptable. It's terrible to see our borough in this state over the last 7 to 8 years because of the cuts in post by the previous administration. It's terrible. It's shameful. Now, you know what he's saying? He's only blaming the period when John Biggs was in post as mayor. And he's leaving himself without any blame or any part in causing this shameful crime that he is describing. So the quotation continues. We are investing in more police officers. We are investing in more Tower Hamlets enforcement officers and CCTV cameras. That combined with investing in the youth service should make a difference when it comes to reducing crime in the borough. Now, let's remind anyone who has been watching this carelessly or not fully attentively. This breakdown that Ruby L. Gregory has stated, let's look at this is the breakdown. It's nearly 12 million of the 16 million on youth services. And only 1.6 million, just over 1.5 million, on hiring 33 new police officers. So, how the hell is this heading justified? The heading is Tower Hamlets Mayor reveals 16.6 million, nearly 17 million pounds to crack down on crime-ridden borough. How can 1.6 million pounds be so distorted to mean 16.6 million pounds? Now, we shall, of course, have to devote a lot longer in terms of broadcasting time to examining item by item the latest pack of lies attributed to Lutfur Rahman. Because Lutfur Rahman could not have written this. Whoever wrote this of course, will not be disclosed, but that is our reading. Lutfur Rahman could not have written this. This is a very carefully worded pack of lies. Now, when I spoke to Lutfur Rahman on Friday, the 29th of October 2010, I did so on the clear demand that I make to him, to his face on that day, at that, let's say, quote, encounter, that the very existence of the Bangladeshis in the UK would be challenged by his behavior. By his behavior, I was referring to his role in any post in the council. And in the course of a total of about 2 minutes, I think, at most, that is how long the conversation lasted, Lutfur Rahman said at least 7 or 8 or 9 times in Siloti language that he would sit down with me after settling down in the post that he had just been, quote, elected to the previous week. He said he would sit down after settling down in that post. It was as clear as that. It was not in a foreign language, like not a language that neither he nor I could understand. It was a Siloti language conversation held in front of 5 or 6 of his kind of cronies at that time following him. And with 1 or 2 exceptions that I didn't know the individuals' identities, all the others spoke Siloti and were Siloti speaking. So he said that he would sit down with me after settling down in the post of mayor. Now that was 29th of October. It was a Friday, 29th of October 2010. Now this is 13 calendar years later. Lutfur Rahman did have conversations with me in the years that followed, but he never sat down with the clear agenda that I demanded he sat down with me. And every time Lutfur Rahman has had conversations with me, whatever the subject, it has always been Lutfur Rahman lying. And as I said, this item by byline to Ruby Gregory is a misleading item. It's a pack of lies. And if she is actually genuinely, independently engaged in local democracy reporting, then she must examine every single item that we are challenging, and she must put this to Lutfur Rahman and demand he produces actual, independently verifiable evidence in support of his claim. We are saying that Lutfur Rahman is lying because Tower Hamlets Council has never, ever recognized its role in creating crime and criminality in the borough. Secondly, Lutfur Rahman, while he was in post from October 2010 until the 23rd of April 2015, that is 6 calendar years, let's say substantially 5 years, he never, ever, Lutfur Rahman never, ever referred to the crime that prevailed at that time during those years in Tower Hamlets. Before he became elected mayor in October 2010, Lutfur Rahman had been a councillor in Tower Hamlets and he had been a councillor for the same area where he lives or lived in the old Montague Street, which is a small street parallel to the Whitechapel Road. Luthra never mentioned any concern, any shame, any sense of embarrassment as a councillor in the years that he was a councillor before he became a mayor. At the rate of crime and criminality, at the role of the police in Tower Hamlets encouraging the criminals to continue perpetrating crime. Role of the police, Metropolitan Police in Tower Hamlets in intimidating the victims of crime in the community. Role of the police in Tower Hamlets, the Metropolitan Police, during all those years in suppressing the demands from victims of crime across the estates in Tower Hamlets, suppressing the evidence, suppressing the confidence of the people to report crime and demand action by the police as well as the Tower Hamlets Council, where the Tower Hamlets Council's complicit role was undeniable in perpetrating the crime and criminality and allowing the criminals to continue. Does Ruby L. Gregory recognize these concepts, these words, or does she think these are manufactured phrases and paragraphs? Whether she recognizes them or not doesn't matter, because we are going to extend the discussion and are going to refute every single sentence contained in that local democracy report that Ruby Gregory has bylined herself to, or as the author of. And we reject any claim that Luthra Mane is interested in solving the crimes in Tower Hamlets, or that there will be any significant, bearable, significant reduction in criminal behavior in Tower Hamlets. In the previous edition, we have said the Tower Hamlets Council estates, like, for example, the estate in Bethnal Green, where the Oaklands Secondary School was based during the years, let's say 2001 to 2007. During the year 2007, two male white Metropolitan Police personnel arrived at the address of the person who had been sending communications to the head teacher of the Oakland school, giving specific factual information about the daily pestering, harassing, and criminal presence and nuisance being caused by gangs of Oakland Secondary School so-called pupils on the particular estate. And these two white metropolitan male policemen threatened the resident, the citizen who had reported these facts. These police individuals threatened the person who reported the crimes. Tower Hamlets Council was aware of that and did nothing. So, does Ruby Gregory understand the mechanics of how criminal gangs on estates in council estates in Tower Hamlets operate with impunity? Does she know that the Tower Hamlets Council's silence on the police collusion with and complicity with the criminality is not an accidental exception but it's a regular pattern and regular behavior running over more than 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. Has she asked Luthraman to give a chapter and verse, year to year or month, a state by state account of what Townless Council had put into place to stop the crimes on the estates? Has she found how many criminals from estates were apprehended and actually prosecuted? And these questions continue. And we shall be communicating these questions other than saying in the broadcast. We shall be communicating directly to this Ruby L. Gregory, asking her to answer questions based on the facts. What she knows, what she has inquired, and does she care about the accuracy? And does she know that it's irresponsible of her and anyone to run a kind of headline and a story of the type that we are referring to here, dated the 16th, updated the 17th of January 2023? Because we don't believe that Ruby Gregory, L. Gregory, has had enough information before she wrote this piece. We don't blame her as such for not having enough information, but we ask her to do the checks and to investigate everything that I have said here in this broadcast and carry out her own additional investigation and to publish the result with evidence. When the Langdon Park School became the subject of news after the murder of a schoolboy in 2013 called Ajmal Ahmad by other Bangladeshi boys, I went to see Ohid Ahmad in Townless Council. Ohid Ahmad was in post in 2013 as the de facto deputy mayor to Lutfur Rahman, and also was the councillor who was being promoted as or called the community safety member responsible for the community safety, which meant that Ohid Ahmad advertised himself quite often as taking a walk through particular designated areas of Tarhamdar's Bara, accompanied by one or two police officers. That was supposed to be the same as tackling crime. Ask Ohid Ahmad if he did that. Let him deny this. So when I went to ask him, Ohid Ahmad that is, why had Ajmal Ahmad been murdered by other Bangladeshi boys? Ohid Ahmad, first of all, refused to engage in a proper conversation with me. He was shifty and he looked completely reluctant to sit down and have a detailed conversation. Now, Ohid Ahmad, neither in Bangladesh nor here in the UK, nor anywhere else on the planet, has got enough resources to pay for 1 hour of my time if I demand payment. Even if he requests, I would not accept any amount from Ohid Ahmad as being enough. And here I was being denied respect and recognition by Ohid Ahmed while I was investigating his failures. How dare Lutfur Rahman lie about his being concerned about the crime that suddenly appeared in the 8 years he thinks was all to do with the Labour Party and the frontage of the council by John Biggs. How dare he? So, Ruby L. Gregory must investigate all of this and come back with a report. The other point about these police numbers is the last thing that the public wants to be told about in the context of any part of London this past week is that the police represent the same thing as opposing crime and criminality. After David Bastard Carrick has been exposed as having admitted to have raped 12 women over 20 years, how is it that any police person can be taken as being the same thing as opposing crime? 1% or 33% police doesn't matter. The police have not taken crime as a thing to deal with, to oppose in Tower Hamlets. Let Ruby L. Gregory find out the answer as to which states have had any police presence. For example, in Shadwell, there is this Cable Street, and alongside the Cable Street, there are house buildings, homes, where people are supposed to be living. During the evening, in the Cable Street area, Bangladeshi criminal gangs appear, drinking and loudly making noise and intimidating ordinary people who are not drinking, who are not making any noise, but trying to live in their homes on the estates. What action has the police taken over the last 20 years, during which this criminality has got worse by the night? How many criminals doing that kind of crime have the Metropolitan Police arrested, prosecuted, and have found the result as being in favor of conviction of the criminals? Have they done that? Let them name the criminals. Let them name the dates and the actual crimes that they have tackled. This has been the same thing happening in the Brick Lane area, in Bethnal Green, in Poplar, in Limehouse, in Bow, and other parts of the borough. Compared to this, complicity with the criminality, Lutfur Rahman has been doing other crimes like abusing the funds of the council or the equivalent of the resources of the council that would amount to millions of pounds worth of funds. He has been allocating council owned properties to criminals that are his allies. Let him deny that. Let Lutfur Rahman deny the Sutton Street criminality that involves the so-called founder of the criminal channel called Channel Slaves, Jalil, let Lutfur Rahman publish the details of the agreement between the Tower Hamlets Council and Jalil about certain street depot. Let Lutfur Rahman publish the details about the other properties, including properties in Whitechapel Road, including the former bank building that is now owned by a property related entrepreneur that is very much close to Lutfur Rahman because of the deal. Let him publish the deal. This cannot be commercially sensitive. The deal has been made. What democratic oversight was applied before the deal was made between Lutfur Rahman and this individual? This is worth millions and millions and millions of pounds. Let Ruby L. Gregory investigate about the claim about the youth services. Now, over about 4-5 years, the corruption of the Tower Hamlets Council's youth services, so called, was investigated. And at every stage, Tower Hamlets Council's employees, doesn't matter whether they're white or they're Bangladeshi, Tower Hamlets Council's employees refused to disclose the actual facts about the youth service and the de facto criminal gangsters that were operating under the covers of the Tower Hamlets Council Youth Services. Let Ruby L. Gregory investigate and let her deny that what we are saying is true. Let her find out what Lutfur Rahman had to say about these criminals and these crimes. So, what we shall be doing is, of course, updating on this in other editions because we want to focus on particular topics instead of just giving a list of topics in one particular edition. So we shall come back with further updates.